Welcome to Wasatch Weekends on this Saturday, August 19th, 1-hour edition. I'm your host, Ben Roof. We've got a great show in store for you today. Nuzzles & Co. is going to stop by to show us some adorable little kittens. And then we're also going to get an introduction into a fantastic pork recipe from Tracy Miller, and Park City's Chamber of Commerce has an incredible small town story for us. But if you're looking for something to do out there in the community today, make sure to go check out the McPolin Farmhouse and Barn, where from 4 and 5:30 today, they will be hosting walking tours where they will showcase the farm's incredible history, from homesteading to how they've transitioned through a working farm into a modern open space and museum. That's $5 per person, and again, those tours, I should say, start at 4 and 5:30 p.m. Now, let's take a quick look at the weather.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Welcome back to Wasatch Weekends. We are joined by Josh from Nuzzles & Company, and he has some adorable little kittens to share with us today. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm terrific. How are you today?
I am doing great. So you look like you have some cute and playful little kitties with you. So tell me a little bit about those guys.
We'll see how this goes today. I got 3 kittens running around here. Super rambunctious and really, really cute. So they'll be popping on screen and off screen as we're talking here. We do a trap, neuter, release community program, and these kittens kind of came in with mom. And so with mom, we did the spay on her, and then we released her into the community. And then with her litter of kittens, they stayed with us, and we watched them get a little bit bigger, and now they're ready for adoption.
Well, that can be a bit of a problem too, especially with cat populations, right? Like, it's fairly easy for a cat to get away from us. They're quick, they're sneaky, they're small, and a lot of times, like, communities can run into feral cat problems, right? And once they're out there, they can start to multiply. So tell me a little bit more about your trap, neuter, release program and how people can get involved with it or how they can help.
So trap, neuter, release is really important to kind of make sure that the population growth of community cats just doesn't get out of control. We use the term community cat to refer to animals that just sort of live in your community. Some people would say strays or ferals or something. Community just is a little more gentle of a term. So they live out in the community. They find food out in the community. And we've discovered with research that if you trap them, bring them in for spay and neuter, and then reintroduce them to the colony, it just kind of, the population obviously doesn't grow anymore. But if you actually remove cats from the colony, there's like a bounce back effect, and the colony actually gets bigger. So this is one of the most effective ways at just kind of keeping that growth under control.
Almost like the community's trying to organically replace that missing member?
Yeah, they definitely try to organically do it, and there's been this like rebound effect that we've discovered, which is pretty interesting. Nature finds a way, as they say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So with a lot of these like community cat programs, it's my understanding that you guys also have a way to help place them with barns and ranches that might be looking for a little bit more of a non-chemical way to handle some pests.
So we work with like local municipal shelters and things. So Summit County, Heber, Drapers, those places, and they'll let us know when they've got like feral cats that they've collected. And so we have a barn cat program where we can have the ferals we have a feral colony at the ranch, and we have a a little pen area where we keep them. The cats are not coming on camera, but they're definitely being active here. Um, and so we hold on to these feral cats, and we let people know out in the community, like, hey, if you need a barn cat, and give them a job, like they'll keep your rodents under control. They'll look to you for food and possible medical care, but they're not indoor house cats. They're not going to be cuddling on your lap. They're not looking for that kind of a lifestyle. But it's another way of kind of taking those cats and keeping that, yeah, just helping with the population control, giving those guys a job, and it's another effective way of managing things. Guys,
So you've got 3 kittens with you now, and could you tell me a little bit about those guys? Have you noticed any distinct personalities yet, or anything other than just rambunctious kittenness?
they're super cute, and one of these 3 cats. So we have they're named after Chicago fire characters. I believe we have Kid, Leslie, and Severus. Leslie is sort of a rarity among orange tabbies because most orange tabbies are males, and we have a female orange tabby. So that's pretty cool. So if someone's looking for a little rarity of a cat, that's pretty fun. They're just at that stage where they just love people and they want to play. This is I've been in this room for 20 minutes, and this is like their favorite thing in the world. They're just like doing the kitty thing of swatting and running around and just having a blast. So out of these 3, like one of them is a little more shy. They're sort of hard to tell apart, but we do that with a little microchip reader when adoption happens. But one of them is a little more shy, and I'm in what's called our meet and greet room. And so when people are interested, they can come to our adoption center, come into the meet and greet room, spend some time with the kittens, just like I'm doing now, and kind of find the cat that works best with their what they're looking for, what's the best fit for them. Or they could take all 3 home.
Well, and that's one of the beauties of a meet and greet room, especially in an adoption center. Like having that opportunity to really get to know them and see if there is a pet or cat, dog, whatever it might be that really kind of fits with you and your personality, and kind of like the Harry Potter wands. It's do they pick
Totally.
you or do you pick them? And that was my experience with my dog. I went to a meet and greet and he sat on my foot, and now I have a dog.
Yeah, I actually like to use the kind of phraseology of the animal generally picks you. You don't pick the animal. You might have a certain expectation of like, hey, I'm looking for like a torty looking cat, or I'd like a pit bull looking dog kind of thing. But my experience is when people come to the adoption center and their hearts are open and they're ready for something, that animal generally picks them. And it becomes this really organic experience of just, hey, I'm here and you spoke to me.
Well, that's awesome. And so I got to ask you though, be like Josh on your shirt there. You're Josh. Does that have anything to do with you or?
It's funny. I just randomly grabbed this shirt, not remembering that I was going to be on the news today. We did we worked with the Be Like Josh Foundation several months ago. Josh is a golden doodle that has neurological disability, so he's a wobbler. And so we had a pretty special event where we had some of our puppies and we had neurologically impaired dogs, and the community came out and got to do kind of a meet and greet with them. And we raised some funds, and it was pretty cool. And we had a positive experience with them, so we'll be doing it again next year. So I get to walk around saying, be like Josh, and it kind of works as a double entendre, be like me, helping save animals, and be like Josh, the golden doodle who inspires people.
Well, it sounds like a really cool event, and I know that wobble dog condition can be something that people can have a little bit of a difficulty dealing with, but it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not really something that the dogs experience as pain, or they just have a little bit of a goofier time than normal walking around.
Right. Part of their brain was underdeveloped. And so just the brain doesn't connect with the body the way it wants to. So they have just balance issues and wobbles. And these guys are being really cute. They're really happy dogs. They live really fulfilled lives, and just like being around these dogs, I can tell you, like they're just so full of joy, and they just need a little help staying upright.
And so, bringing it back to cats, is this a condition that can also affect cats?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that, but my experience thus far is I haven't met any cats like that.
Well, I wouldn't know either. I was just kind of thinking about it. I was like, I wonder if that would work. I bet it wouldn't, especially with cats trying to jump off of tables and chairs and everything all the time. Tail moves the wrong way, and all of a sudden the cat takes out the coffee pot.
Yeah, I mean, now we've all got a little bit of homework to do and do some research.
Right? Well, so do you guys have any meet and greet events coming up, or any events where you guys are out and people can come meet the animals?
We're going to be in Camas tomorrow from, I believe, 11 to 4. We're doing an adoption event and also doing vaccinations. So we'll have some of our vet team out there. Uh, I don't remember the name of the place they're going to be. It's a pet boarding, like pet lodge place that's out in Camas. But if you go to our website, or actually on social media, you can find the details of that event. We posted it just a couple of days ago.
And that social media is all just Nuzzles & Co., right? And that's how we can find you on Instagram or wherever else?
Yeah, look us up, Nuzzles & Co. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We make social media posts every day. That includes adoptable animals, events coming up, just all things Nuzzles.
Awesome. And if we're looking for a little bit more information, where can we find your website, Josh?
It's nuzzlesandco.org. And when you get to that homepage, there's loads of information there from adoptable animals to ways you can get involved and all the other programs that we have.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us those 3 adorable kittens, even if we didn't get to see them too much. It is kind of hard
They're doing
to wrangle
exactly the
cats.
kitten thing of running around right now. And oh my God.
Got
Can
him.
you say goodbye to the camera? Can you say bye?
Bye, kitty. Well, Josh, thank you so much. And make sure to go and check out nuzzlesandco.org and their awesome adoption location. And if you have the opportunity to head out and check out their ranch, make sure to do so. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be right back after a short message.
Welcome.
Welcome back to the show. Tracy Miller with Colorful Cooking has got a pork dish for us that she's going to walk us through. And pork can always be a little bit tricky, but she's got some tips and tricks to help us keep it nice and moist. So let's take a look.
So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the peach sauce. And when we do this, we need to get a pan. And I have a nonstick pan here, and we're going to talk about nonstick pans in a moment. But I have my nonstick pan, and I'm going to put just a little bit of oil in the bottom. And I have about a half a cup of onions that I've already diced up. So I'm going to let my pan warm up just a little bit. And I've got it kind of cranked too at a medium heat. So as you can see, the oil is just starting to get a little glossy and maybe a little bubbly. And typically that's when your oil is going to start to be warm enough to put your veggies in there or whatever you're starting to cook. My nonstick pan is going to, of course, spread the oil around because you hardly need any. See that? See that nice little wreath, that summertime wreath? You hardly need any oil when you're using a nonstick pan. So here we go. We're going to put our onions that are diced up, which means they're chopped up really small, about a half a cup in here as the base of our peach sauce. So this is going to be a savory peach sauce that's going to go on pork. Now, I am going to stir it up with a spatula because when you're using a nonstick pan, you really want to be careful and use a rubber ladle or a wooden ladle or something that's going to not scratch it up. Using something like this that has metal on it or even tongs like this, going to scratch it up a little bit. So you can, of course, use them, but you just kind of have to be a little more careful. Here we go. My onions are all in the pan, and what I've done now is I've spread them out. So as you can see, they are all spread out in a single layer. When you're cooking something on a pan, you want your veggies to be spread out. Actually, when you're cooking something, when you're baking it, whatever you're doing, you want everything to be spread out because then the heat can go all around every piece of veggie or meat or whatever you're cooking. So then it's a little more even. Of course, you're going to get a few chunks, but it'll be a little bit more even. Whenever I'm cooking anything, I salt and pepper as I go. So what I do is I have 2 little cups, a little bit of pepper right here. You don't want to use too much pepper early on because that can make your food kind of bitter, but you do want to use a little bit. So I'm just going to sprinkle just a tiny bit, maybe not even a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. and even less of pepper, just a little bit to kind of get the juices flowing, to get the flavors going. When you add salt to something, it brings out the natural liquid in the ingredient. So it makes it a little more juicy in the pan. So we've got that going right now. I'm going to let that simmer for just a little bit, probably like 7 or 8 minutes. So I'm going to turn it down a little because I had it on medium. I'm going to turn it down to a medium low. So the fresh peaches that I have are a little bit hard today, which is okay. It's actually nice when you're cooking with hard peaches because they don't get as mushy. So you're going to either get some fresh peaches today or you're going to get some canned peaches. We will kind of talk about the canned peaches at the end of cooking this sauce if that's what you have. But if you have fresh peaches, then look for ones that are a little bit harder if you're going to cook them. If you want to peel them, and I highly suggest that you peel these because what happens is when you cook them, the skins kind of fall off and they get a little chewy anyways. So when you're about to peel a ripe peach, and really folks, I'm throwing the dice today on this one because this peach is not very ripe at all. So what I'm doing is I'm going to score it. So you're going to score it in like 4 different areas. See, and I can already tell it's like, that skin's pretty stuck on there because this is not that ripe. But you're just going to kind of cut it all the way through. And then you're going to pop it into boiling water. Now this is something you also do when you want to take the skin off of a tomato. So again, we pop it in boiling water. We're going to start seeing those edges kind of fall apart from the skin in the boiling water. So we're going to let that boil for just a couple of minutes while we go back to our sauce. And here we go. We've got the onions are starting to like caramelize up just a little bit. When things caramelize, that means they get brown spots on them. Don't be too scared of those brown spots because those have a lot of flavor if you catch them at the right time. So if I let this kind of sit there, I'm borderline right now. I could burn my onions pretty quickly, or I could start adding some more ingredients to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to use cornstarch in our sauce today. And cornstarch is going to give it be a thickening agent. Now, cornstarch is one of the easiest thickening agents, in my opinion, that we can use. Used in a lot of like Thai food and Chinese food to make the sauces thicker. A lot of times when you want to thicken your sauce, you make a roux, and that's typically with butter and flour, and you stir it around really nicely, and then you add some juice. Cornstarch, it makes it just a little bit easier to work with it. But the only thing, when you are putting some kind of flour, and I'm going to turn this down a little because I'm at the risk right now, is if you can see that, of burning my onions, and I'm taking too long for the next step. So I'm going to turn it down just a little, and I'm going to use just about a tablespoon of cornstarch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly sprinkle it all over my onions, okay? So we're going to just like give it a little bit of a coating there. And then we're going to stir it around very gently. And see, I should not be using the spoon, right, folks? Because that's metal and I'm on a nonstick pan. So we're going to stir this around. And this is the really important step when you're working with any kind of flour or cornstarch or anything like that. You need that flour and that cornstarch. You need that dry ingredient to melt into the onions. Now, if you can see, our onions kind of have a creamy effect right now. I have some brown sugar that I'm going to be adding to this. And it's kind of old, so it's a little hard, but it'll be perfect in the sauce. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon of brown sugar. I'm going to add a little ginger, and I'm going to add a little bit of water. And then we're going to crank this up, okay? So we're going to kind of boil this sauce a little bit right now and let that all dissolve together and thicken up with the cornstarch. If you wanted to use a chicken broth or a veggie broth, that would give it a little bit more flavor, but this has a lot of nice flavors in it right now because it has the ginger and the brown sugar. And then we're going to be putting peaches in it. So as you can see, the sauce is kind of starting to thicken up a little bit. Looks really good, actually. We're going to season it with salt and pepper, and then I'm actually just going to turn it off for right now. So let's put a little more salt and pepper on this. See, ooh, see it getting all bubbly like that? That's some good brown sugar stuff right there. Sugar can burn, so you have to be careful. The smell is really good. Turn it off, remove it from the heat if it starts to get if you're not ready to put your peaches in right now, turn it off and remove it from the heat. Now let's take a look at what's going on with this peach now that we have been boiling it in the water, because it does look like it's starting to be removed. So as we take a look at this, you can see where I scored it, and then the skin is starting to come off a little bit. Not enough, because it's not a very ripe peach. When you have a really ripe one, you're gonna have that skin is just gonna start to fall off. But what we're gonna do now is put this back in the water, because I'm having a hard time, and I might have a hard time the whole time, but I'm having a hard time pulling that away. Really, it should come away really easily. So pop that right back in there. And then what we're gonna do is get a bowl of cold ice water to put that in when we think it's ready. So you put your fruit or your tomato into this boiling water. You boil it until the skin starts to kind of shed from the fruit, and then you pop it into some cold water. That is called blanching. So that's the method we're going to use for this right now. But whenever you're working with fresh fruits and veggies, you kind of have to be flexible. So if this doesn't work, I still need some peaches. So all I'm going to do now is either peel the peaches, or I'm just going to kind of take the skin off. I'm going to cut it off, because we are going to put just the peach flesh into the sauce.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters. So then just cut your peaches in little julienne slices, and a julienne slice would be something like this, where you take your piece of whatever you're cutting and you just cut it into thin strips. So we're going to cut that right there. And also sometimes when you're working with fresh fruits and vegetables, these could be a little more sour than they normally are when they're at their peak. So you might have to add a little more sugar. You'll always have to adjust. I'm just going to pop these right into the sauce for now that is turned off. I'm going to stir it around a little. There we go. That's kind of a nice gooey sauce right there. So those peaches are going to start to warm up a little bit. We'll turn that back on once we get really close to getting our pork all together. But right now, let's move on over to the pork tenderloin. Oh yes, this is one of my favorite cuts because it is pretty much as lean as can be. So if you're looking for something really healthy, then a pork tenderloin. Always remember when it was called, I mean, you probably don't remember because it was like my mom's time when they started calling it the other white meat, but that's really what it is. It's very low fat, it's very high protein, it's really, really good for you, and it's super quick to cook. A lot of people get scared cooking their pork. They're afraid they're going to overcook it, or they're afraid they're going to undercook it and you're going to get salmonella. But really, it's easy to cook it to a nice temperature, and 145 is that temperature. Okay, so here we have the pork. These are pork tenderloins. This piece right here is called the silver skin, and that is a piece of fat that typically I just like to cut right off. A lot of people don't, especially if you are grilling it. You might not want to cut it off, but me, I'm kind of like picky about all the fat on my meat, so I cut most of it off. So let's just trim this up a little bit. You can kind of get like under a piece of the fat and then just pull it off. Hold it up like that, see that? Cut underneath. And then we'll get this big piece off right here. And get that all cleaned up. Okay, so now I have another frying pan, which I have on a, I'm gonna crank this one up a little bit because we are gonna add a cold, I've had this pork sitting out at room temperature for probably about 15, 20 minutes now, which is typically what you wanna do whenever you're cooking some meat like this. So you have your meat out at room temperature, because what happens is if you pull it right from the refrigerator, it's cold, and then you want to put it in a hot pan. It's like, ah! So you want to kind of warm the meat up a little bit. Same with steak, same with chicken breast, same with pork, same with pretty much everything. Fish, let's not say the same with fish. Let's just say the same with these meats. Okay, so I'm going to medallion this right now, and what that means is I'm just cutting it into small, round pieces, so it's going to be really easy to cut. I mean, really easy to cook. We're going to do about a 1/2 inch. Okay, so make sure you have a really sharp knife. Hold your knife like you really got it, and then just cut these pieces. All righty. And what we're going to do is we're just going to season this with salt and pepper. Really, really simple. Get all of these pieces cut. You know, at the bottom you're going to get like some weird pieces, so you just figure that out. Cut them however you think they're going to cook the best. Usually they have a little more fat right there. All right, now we have all of our pork medallions. So this is basically a medallion right there. That's what a medallion is. So if you ever go out to eat or somebody's like, oh, I'm going to medallion that today, this is what it means. It's just like a nice piece that's even and kind of small. All righty. Now we have to season our meat, and you always want to season every single side of your meat. When I'm cooking big like filet mignons or something like that, I make sure I get every side, like all the sides and all 4 sides. These are a little smaller, so they might be easier. So I'm going to flip them over and just season every piece. When you're flipping them over, like sometimes I just like to, rub those sides so that they get a little seasoning on them as well. You'll definitely notice a better flavor if you properly season everything that you're cooking. Salt and pepper is really my favorite spice. Okay, so we've got the pepper on there. Now let's get the salt on. And depending on your dietary restrictions, you might not want to add that much salt. I'm going to put some oil in the bottom of this pan. Feels like it's warming up already. I can just feel it with my hands. But I am going to crank it up because my meat is somewhat cold, and my pan, I want everything to sizzle when I put it in the pan. So right when I put this pork in, I want it to sizzle. So let's see, I don't know, maybe, ready? Oh yeah, see, we got a little sizzle. So now I'm just going to put all of these medallions in here at a medium-high heat because we are putting a lot of pork in here. And that's going to bring the temperature of the pan down a little bit. And we want to get a sear on one side so that it's absolutely delicious. This is not going to take very long at all to cook. After you work with raw meat, you really need to wash up your hands and your cutting board. So let's take a quick break. Keep an eye on this. If your break goes more than 4 minutes, flip over your pork. But if not, we'll be right back to flip that pork over.
Welcome back to the show. Expedition HR is a local business that helps smaller businesses focus on their HR needs. Whether you've got 1 or 50 employees, Expedition HR can really help you make sure those relationships stay good and positive. And the Park City Chamber of Commerce is a small town story for us, focusing on Expedition HR.
Welcome to Small Town Stories, sponsored by the Park City Chamber. Today we get to talk with Jill Schroyer and learn more about her small town Park City story, what it's been like to have a business here in Park City, what brought her here, and so much more. Jill, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love coming to Park City TV.
Well, I love talking about Park City as a town and what makes it great for the many people that live and work here who are very influential also in the business landscape, and you're one of those individuals. What originally brought you to Park City?
I came from New England. I'm a New Englander at heart, although the big mountains of Utah drew me out, and I have to say I don't think I'll ever go back and live in New England. I've been out here 21 years now, so this is now home and love being in the mountains.
So 21 years, this is home for you now,
Yes.
and I'm sure you've seen a lot of change. What have been some positive changes, though, with this small town growing and welcoming so many more people from all over the world?
One thing I love is just I've been able to meet more people. You know, when there are more people moving to town, obviously you go to events either for business or personally, and you just see new faces and meet new people from all parts of the U.S. And that's one of the most fun things for me. I just love meeting people and kind of learning about what brought them here. And so that's been a change that I've welcomed. I mean, in general, I welcome change because, you know, it's inevitable to a point, right? So I try and just enjoy it and kind of pull out the pieces that, you know, are kind of fun and exciting in change.
So you came here for the mountains. Do you like to ski, to hike, mountain bike? What is it?
All of the above. Yes, I've kind of recently become a trail runner in the mountains, so I love that. But yeah, I've always skied since I was a kid, so Utah is the place to do that.
It absolutely is. You came for that, but what has kept you here?
Yeah, great question. So just the lifestyle. I really think the mountains, again, that's what drew me here. I mean, you know, people ask me, was it a job? Was it your career? And I say, no, I just wanted to go out west and live in the big mountains, but I want to continue to live where there's mountains all around, so that's one big factor. And I just love the outdoor lifestyle. Just camping, hiking, and raising kids in this town it's just so special. And I always think, wow, my kids are really lucky to be raised in Park City.
They absolutely are. I agree with that. And your small town story, though, it does have a lot to do with business. Tell me about your career.
So I mentioned I moved out to Utah from New England just about 21 years ago now. I have to do the math. It was the year of the Olympics here in Park City. So came out and got a job in HR. So that's really human resources for those of you that aren't familiar with the acronym. But that's where I got my start and just loved everything about it from day one. I worked at a ski resort in HR, and kind of fast forwarding through the years, I also speak Spanish. So I did some sales and marketing roles and just kept coming back to HR because I just loved it. I loved it back to the people, and I got to meet new people, and I got to help with some of the new hire paperwork at the resorts from people that came in from Spanish-speaking countries. And just from there, I kept growing my career in HR. And literally 1 year, there was a point during the year where someone asked me about consulting for them and said, you know, you have all this HR experience. Can you help us from a consultant level? I thought, oh, that's exciting. And then I thought about it a little bit and thought, maybe I could do this as my full-time career. So from there, my HR consulting career started, and started my business, Expedition HR.
And HR can be a tough space. A lot of people, you know, it gets kind of a bad reputation, I would say. What is it that you loved about it? You said right away you really enjoyed doing work in human resources. What is it that drew you in?
Well, the people. Loved meeting people and the ability that in my job I can interact with people all day. But HR is so much more than just like the people department. I think people get the idea that, oh, those HR people, all they do is, you know, talk with others and do paperwork. I actually loved when employees would have kind of conflicts with each other, and maybe their managers just didn't know where to go with it and how to resolve it. And I remember the first time I stepped in and helped and kind of went through a process and found that everyone else was really, you know, anxious about the conversation, and I really enjoyed it, which sounds really odd, but the reason I liked it is I always came in from what I call a human-centered approach. So I'm thinking, you know, everyone in this conversation, no one really wants to be here, no one wants to bring up these tough issues. But we're all humans, and we all have stress and anxiety, and we all have times when we don't get along with someone else. So just taking it from that approach and seeing both sides, it's almost like solving a puzzle with like a great result of two people being able to move forward in a better way.
It's those conflict resolution skills that you have, but also putting the people first, which can also be a challenge sometimes.
Yes, and listening to people's side, and in your head thinking, wow, that's going to be hard to, talk with the other person, but really understanding where everyone's coming from is really key. And like you said, the human side, and just starting out from an angle of, everyone wants to get along. And so when there's an issue, usually there's something that there's the ability to talk through and resolve.
And having years of experience doing that, being able to be in those spaces and resolve those conflicts, also led to a book. Tell me about that.
Yes. So the book I wrote is called Conquer Sticky Situations. You can find it out on Amazon. So all these years in HR, before I started the business, I would follow a set pattern of handling these, what I call sticky situations. And what I did was kind of box it up into like a succinct formula and write a book about it. And so the basic idea of the book is this 5-step formula that I teach for handling sticky situations, but it doesn't end there because it's fairly simple and it's not something that others haven't talked about or pieces of it you couldn't find if you looked elsewhere. The part that I say is where like the magic really happens is I talk about making your approach to the conversation as simple as possible, making sure you're straightforward, but you're not brutally honest. You are professional, kind, and remembering the human side. So those 3 layers fold in, and I think that's really what makes the book and what I teach so special, because if you remember those pieces along with the formula, guarantee is a strong word, but I almost guarantee you can get through any hard talk if you put in the time to really learn the pieces.
And you wrote this before COVID, which you're on the kind of the leading edge of this, because now employees are finding themselves in this space where they feel like they can speak up for their needs, where they can place boundaries on their work hours. It's gone from the Great Resignation to now quiet quitting, all these different terms we're hearing in the business world, employee shortages. And now I think this, not only for employees, but employers want to make their employees happy. These tools are now more important than they have ever been before. Are you finding that to be true in your space?
Yes, and a lot of calls I get, looking for help. They just say, we've got these conversations coming up more frequently and we don't know how to handle them. Can we get some help with that? And that kind of opens the conversation about how I could potentially help them.
Which is exactly what you're doing. Did you have any reservations going out on your own? And how did the business landscape in Park City help you in launching this business and becoming a consultant and really working for yourself?
Yeah, I think when the idea first came to me, I thought, I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't own a business. I can't be a business owner, like probably is pretty normal for anyone who starts a business. And then the more I just started thinking through it, it became very natural for me to go this way. And Park City is an awesome place to run a business. I feel like the people, they come from all areas. We have a lot of people like myself coming in from different parts of the US. And I don't know what, it's hard to put my finger on. And New England's great, and I love the people there, but here it's almost just a different, and maybe it is because people come in from a lot of different parts, but you get just a really neat group of people that support you through networking events and through business masterminds. And I feel like the environment here is super conducive to small business growth and networking, which is really the biggest part of it.
And where can we get more information about you, your consulting business, your book, all those things?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So my website is expeditionhr.com, and you'll be able to find out more about me. And if it's okay, I'll share the one thing I offer that's really exciting and great for small business if they're struggling with sticky situations is an HR subscription. And it's not a super common HR consulting model. And it's really simple. It's all the resources they need to not only have the conversations, but to set a solid HR foundation in their business and get one-on-one support for these sticky type of situations, or just, I have a random HR question. So that and more they can find on my website if that's an interest.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jill. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing about your small town story. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Christine. My pleasure.
All right, we're going to take a break and be back with more right after this.
Welcome back. That pork dish is looking incredible. So let's see how Tracy finishes it up.
So now it's time to flip the pork over. I'm gonna hope to have a nice little sear on my pork. Oh yeah, that's what we call caramelized. So if you can see those brown bits on the pork, then we are talking nice job, because that is caramelization. So now we have, our pan is still on a medium high, but we got that caramelization on one side that we want. So we're gonna turn it down. I say let's turn it all the way down to low. We're gonna let that cook a little bit. I am going to show you, let's see, what do you think? Is this underripe peach going to peel off like it should, or is it going to be difficult? This is the question right now. Our peach is boiling in the water. It has been scored into an X all the way around, and now I have some ice cold water that I am going to put the peach in. This technique is called blanching. And you do it with tomatoes if you want to peel them. You do it with peaches if you want to peel them. I don't know what else you're going to peel. But you also do it with like broccoli. If you're going to put some broccoli on like a veggie platter and you want it to keep that really green color, then you blanch the broccoli so it stays nice and green. Otherwise, it kind of turns brown. All right, let's see. Let's see what's going on with this thing. So you take it from the hot boiling water to ice water, and then it kind of wants to peel. Like you can see that it kind of wants to. It's definitely going to be easier to cut off than it was the first time. But typically, if you're working with a fresher piece of fruit, this will just peel right off. But it's not going to happen right now. I was kind of afraid of that, but just thought I'd show you the technique. So maybe if you feel like trying it at some point in time, then you can. And this actually makes it a lot easier to peel the peach, but really, really hot. Smells like peaches, summertime. All right, so we're gonna get that into the sauce. We've got the pork cooking on low. I always do the finger touch. And do you see the juices that are coming out from the pork? That's gonna be a lot of really good flavor. So what we're gonna do now is turn our peach sauce back on, because we turned it off because we cooked it a little bit too soon. No big deal, no big deal at all. You can cook it as fast as you want or as slow as you want. We're gonna add a few more peaches to it. Because about 2 peaches will be good for the whole family. If you're cooking for a family of 4, and that's typically what these classes are doing, then you should use about 2 peaches. That's about a half a peach per person. And of course, your peaches are going to be all different sizes. And if your family loves peaches, then you just use the big ones. If you're experimenting with them, trying to get the kids to eat some fruit or something, use the smaller ones. But I bet you $1,000,000 they will like them. And if you're working with canned peaches, what you do is just put those peaches right in the sauce right now. So you would cook all of that sauce on its own and then put the peaches in here. This is a little thick for me, so I'm going to add a little more water. And once again, remember I said you could add broth if you wanted to. We're going to mix it actually with the peaches once it gets warmed up, and then we're going to have our dinner. So here we go. So see the consistency there? If something is too thick, just add a little bit of water to it. It really will give it a nice consistency, and it will, everything kind of thickens up as you cook it without a cover on it. So if you put a cover on this, it wouldn't thicken up quite as much, but it still would a little bit. So there we go. We've got that kind of cooking away. We've got our pork, which feels like it's pretty much done. And what I'm going to do is get this pan out of the way, our unsuccessful peach peeling. But I hope you understand that when you're going to, if you do want to have that peach without the skin on it. That method is super easy when they're more ripe. It's just a little early season. We're just kind of filming things at a different time. And it's when they're ripe, you put them into that hot boiling water, and then you put them into an ice cold bath, and that skin will peel off really nicely. Okay, let's bring everything together. Here we go. We're gonna put the peach sauce right over the pork. And then the pork juices are gonna mix with the sauce. So that's gonna make it really, really delicious. Make sure you turn everything off. Here we go. So I'm gonna let this kind of cook together for about another minute or two. And then we're gonna have our dinner. I like putting this over a little bit of quinoa that I've already cooked. So I'm gonna start kind of getting that plate together as this starts to boil a little. Clean off your workspace. One of the most important things about cooking is having a clean workspace. And a sushi chef I used to know actually taught me this trick, and he said just have a wet cloth by your workstation, and whenever your knife gets dirty, you just kind of wipe your knife off. And that's a really nice trick because your knife is going to be one of your most important tools in the kitchen. You want it sharp all the time. The more dull your knife is, the more error could happen. And if you've got stuff all stuck to the bottom of your knife, when you go to cut something, it could jerk it in a certain direction. So this has been one of my favorite tips. Just a wet rag right next to the knife so you can clean it off nicely. Okay. I think our pork is pretty much done. I'm going to turn it off and let it rest for about a minute or two. Whenever you're cooking meat, you want to let things rest for a little bit because that is going to let the meat's juices just kind of stick right in the middle there. So we want that to rest a little bit. I've got some cooked quinoa, which is so healthy for you and so full of protein. So we're going to put that quinoa right here on the bottom. I am going to get a couple nice medallions now that we know what medallions are. Look how pretty you can make this look. We'll get some medallions right there. One more really pretty one. And then we'll get some of that peach sauce, which has definitely thinned out now that we added that extra water broth and put it in the pan with our pork and our pork juices. So here we go. This is a very, very healthy dinner. It's a pork tenderloin. We've got a little quinoa on there as well and some fresh peaches. So for a summertime meal that's quick and easy, there you go, a little pork with peaches.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Well, that's all the time we have for this special 1-hour Saturday edition of Wasatch Weekends. Don't forget, if you've missed any of our previous episodes, you can always catch us on parkcity.tv. Until next time, I'm your host, Ben Roof, and don't forget to tune in Sunday where Tracy's got a delicious crab cake recipe for us. See you later.